G'day you mob, Pete here, and this is another episode of Aussie English, the number one place for anyone and everyone wanting to learn Australian English. So today I have a Goss episode for you where I sit down with my old man, my father, Ian Smissen, and we talk about the week's news, whether locally down under here in Australia or non-locally overseas in other parts of the world. Okay, and we sometimes also talk about whatever comes to mind, right? If we can think of something interesting to share with you guys related to us or Australia, we also talk about that in the Goss. So these episodes are specifically designed to try and give you content about many different topics where we're obviously speaking in English and there are multiple people having a natural and spontaneous conversation in English. So it is particularly good to improve your listening skills. In order to complement that though, I really recommend that you join the podcast membership or the academy membership at aussieenglish.com.au, where you will get access to the full transcripts of these episodes, the PDFs, the downloads, and you can also use the online PDF reader to read and listen at the same time. Okay, so if you really want to improve your listening skills fast, get the transcript, listen and read at the same time, keep practicing, and that is the quickest way to level up your English. Anyway, I've been rabbiting on a bit. I've been talking a bit. Let's just get into this episode, guys. Smack the bird, and let's get into it. Man, foxes are cunning.
They are. I thought you were going to say something else then.
I'll drop the C-bomb. Cunning.
Cunning.
Yeah. Cunning as a fox. I guess that's why we have that expression, huh?
Yes, they are very smart.
I bet that expression exists in other languages.
Oh, yeah.
100%. I bet. So guys, let me know.
It might not be a fox. It might be some other animal that is similar. But I expect
bet there is a fox one, especially European languages where there's obviously foxes.
Yes.
I'm almost 100% certain you would have that comparison.
Yes,
They're
exactly.
nifty little creatures.
So, yes, all those Poles and Russians and Germans, let us know.
Yeah, well, I had a story here. Phone app used to track down cunning fox to North Haven sand dunes after it stole a pair of shorts.
That in itself, you don't need to do anything else.
That's the story. All right, see you guys. See you next week.
Bye. The tagline itself is amusing enough.
I know. Well, that's why I opened it and was like, wait, what?
What? Yeah, it worked. Clickbait for the title.
Did I send you this one to read, or is that just am I throwing
you
it at
sent it to me, but I haven't looked at it yet. I have to confess.
Call your pants down.
I did. Yeah.
All right.
That's not a pretty sight.
The opening paragraph was, Find-My-iPhone apps typically hit the headlines when they are used to track down a thief. But rarely does the bandit have four legs and a penchant for nicking thongs from suburban beaches. Yes. So this took place on a beach called North Haven Beach in Adelaide.
Yeah.
I've never been there. Nice place. I take it you've been? You've been everywhere.
I have, but I can't remember. I have been there, but I can't remember it. So
yeah, cool. That's probably good then. Obviously, you don't remember it as being bad.
No, it is neither sensational nor terrible. So,
well, yeah, be careful. You might
all
get
those
robbed
North Haven locals. Hi, how you going? Yeah.
Keep an eye out.
Watch
for
out for
foxes.
Foxes that steal phones. Anyway.
Yeah. So, Ms. Waring, I assume that's how I say her name, was purported as saying, "It was dark and late and my partner's little brother decided it was a bit cold. He went up to get his towel and saw a fox run off with his stuff. It had his shorts that contained his phone, his car keys, and his partner's phone, and my partner's phone. The guy ran back to their house in his jocks only, so in his underwear, and had to get some spare keys to get her phone, the person who's reporting this, so that he could use the iPhone Find-My-iPhone app in order to track it down." I'm like,
and it worked.
You'd hate to do it in a place where there's no reception.
Yeah, or the phone is just turned off.
Yes.
Airplane
mode.
Yeah, exactly.
So he was saying it was moving around for a little bit, so the little bugger still had it. An hour later, they tracked the phone and shorts to a fox den in the sand dunes. And they also uncovered a stash of other people's stuff.
How many other phones?
Yeah, that's it. He's making international calls.
Yeah, he's selling them on eBay.
It was mainly shoes, a lot of thongs, so they must
And
like
thongs,
feet for some
have
reason.
have you explained what thongs are?
Not G-strings.
Yeah, not G-strings.
Not really thin underwear, tooth-floss underwear.
No,
No,
exactly. So they are
flip-flops.
yes,
Yeah, sandals with no
back strap.
That's it.
Jandals.
So-
for all my New Zealand friends.
Yeah, I know, jandals. That's such a weird thing.
Yeah, but you could have
Yeah, I know,
anything
it's
more
all
weird than
relative.
thongs.
It's weird to hear it when you don't use it, right? That's why
It
it's
is.
jandals.
Yeah,
And your
jandals.
chili bun. And you're like,
chili
what?
bun. And flip-flops are...
Chili bun. It's an esky.
Flip-flops are good because it's onomatopoeic.
Yeah,
That's
it
exactly
sounds
what
like
they
it.
sound like when you're walking. They go flip-flop, flip-flop, flip, as they slap off the ground and onto your foot.
They'd be worried if there's a flip-flop, you're kind of like, which one of your feet
Is flopping.
is flopping and which one's
Yeah,
flipping?
I'm out of balance here. I'm leaning over.
Shouldn't it be flip, 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 flip? And that would sound like you're running to me.
Flip-flips just doesn't work as a name for something. Anyway, the fox.
Yeah, so I don't know. We were just talking about dingoes in the last episode. And I thought
We were.
foxes, nifty little critters.
They are.
They're not
smart.
dogs, though, are they? They're sort of
Well, they're dogs in the sense that they
They're
belong to
canines,
the
right?
canid family.
Yeah.
But they are not within the canid family. They're not very closely related to domestic dogs.
No.
Domestic dogs are wolves.
Yeah.
Same
These guys are like
species.
jackals, right?
These are
Foxes and jackals. and
arguably a different genus. I mean that
coyotes, are they in there too with them?
coyotes are separate again. Yeah,
Coyote, that's a weird word.
coyote.
Yeah, well, weird spelling too.
Yeah.
Coyote. You would not imagine that it's Coyote,
No,
right?
I think that's an anglicisation of a Native American.
It must be.
Word.
It must be. Although you would imagine if it was a Native American indigenous word, they wouldn't have had spelling. So who the hell screwed the spelling up?
I know. Well, for all we know, and who knows which people it came from, but they might have actually called them coyotes or sounded like coyotes when they said it. And then that person had an Australian accent and it became coyote.
Yeah.
And then coyote or so.
Or an American accent.
Yeah. Well, but but it's that Australian accent, but every vowel sounds like an I sometimes. Yeah. So.
But yeah, foxes are really crazy. The story, I thought we could talk about how they got to Australia, right? They're these indigenous animals that are endemic to, I think, huge parts of Europe, right?
Europe,
At least the
yeah.
red fox, the one
Yes.
that we've got here in Australia, is found all over the shop in Europe.
It
But
is.
the ones that we got here are from England, obviously, I imagine.
Yes.
Came over. They were brought over in the late 1800s, actually. So it's pretty interesting that it took 100 years after we colonized this place
was.
to bring,
Well,
to bring
it
foxes
required
over.
it required the British upper class to have arrived in Australia, and unlike many other of the naturalisation society, as they were called, animal imports.
Do you want to mention
were
what that
here.
is?
Well, yeah, it was a group of people who, English people, British people who had come to Australia and decided that they wanted to anglicise Australia. They wanted, the birds and mammals and things that they were used to. So,
And we still suffer from
we
the
do.
effects
Thank
of
you
this.
for the rabbits.
And the starlings and the Indian miners
I know.
and the raspberries.
Yeah, exactly. So there's all sorts of things that the Naturalisation Society brought over to anglicise Australia.
And they just effectively what?
They
Like
basically
with the
brought them over and let
raspberries,
them go. Well, it was
they put them
blackberries.
along.
It was blackberries.
Was it? They put them along hiking trails, right? Because they wanted to eat.
That was
whilst
von
they were
Mueller, thank you.
going.
And he actually, von Mueller, who was the head of the Victorian or the Melbourne Botanic Gardens at the time. And he was
Should have known better.
He was an amazing explorer of southern Australia, and he collected, described, and named thousands of plants.
Just knew bugger all about ecology.
But yeah, exactly. But he used to take blackberries out and just throw them out, and he said someday people will thank me for having food because he thought that you couldn't eat any Australian native plants, which he was wrong.
Yeah.
But
Talk to the locals, you moron.
Exactly.
What do you think they're
so
eating?
we have blackberries all over southeastern Australia. So the foxes, though, came out here because the sort of upper class Englishmen, and they were all men, decided that they wanted to continue their fox hunting
On
tradition
horse with
where they
hounds,
get
right?
the foxhounds and the horse and the horn and and off we go chasing the foxes. So you can't have a fox hunt. Ironically, you
Without a
can now
fox.
because most fox hunts in Britain, that was decided decades ago that it was too cruel. to have dogs chasing
But
foxes.
quite often they would catch the fox and then have the fox with them and then let the fox go.
They would, but
so there was
but
nowhere. It's not like the fox knew where it was just in its natural environment and knew where it could bail and everything. It was just on the run, right? Like Prison Break.
And it was being chased by dogs. Now of course they do have fox hunts without the fox. They just let the dogs out. The dogs go herring off.
How do you compete in that sense?
I don't think it was ever a competition. I think it was just a sort of a nice day out. As the Scotsman would say, take up golf.
I guess all the women were doing the high tea or something.
They were preparing the champagne and the cucumber sandwiches.
The men are just like, I'm going to go kill some wild animals.
It's all a bit bizarre. So that's how foxes were introduced for fox hunting.
Yeah, and they probably thought, you know what, we're going to have the last laugh here.
Oh yeah. And again, because at the time they were introduced, dingoes had started to be reduced, and that would have been their major competitor. The only other large carnivorous animal that still would have been around were dingoes, and so foxes just went, thank you. And because they're generalist carnivores, in fact omnivores, they'll eat berries and things, they'll eat anything. They survive almost anywhere, and so I think the only place they're not found,
unlike cats, which have been able to penetrate pretty much every single habitat in Australia, even the deserts. Foxes have done the same, except I don't think that they can handle the monsoon tropics. Yeah. So places like Darwin, I don't think they're able to handle the wet seasons or potentially the dry seasons.
And I don't think you see them in the big, the true deserts, sort of borderline deserts. You'll see them.
Yeah, but there's apparently, based on this, in 2012 there were 7.2 million red foxes, Vulpes, the species name there, throughout the continental mainland of Australia. So
probably more than they have in Europe.
Let's see. Let's do a little one there. Maybe we can do the UK. The UK will probably kick the crap out of it. They're not going to have 7 point. They only got 400,000 apparently foxes in the UK. Yeah. So there's more foxes in Australia than there are in their native homeland. It's the same with camels, right? We've had the same thing happen.
We've got the biggest population of wild camels in the world. In fact, we've got one of the only populations of wild camels, because there really aren't many wild camels in the Middle East where they originated, at least dromedary camels. Yeah. There are still wild Bactrian camels in Mongolia, but not many of them.
But the foxes are... It's one of those things where I always felt so bad for them, because they seem like such beautiful animals. And when you actually see someone who's raised them as a pet, they're like halfway between a cat and a dog. Like they're still really affectionate like a dog, but really kind of slinky and like just full of energy and like a ferret, right? Yeah, you see them jumping around and making whining noises, and you're like, this would be a kind of cool pet, although they stink, apparently. They do. Yeah. Apparently they stink. But
that's how they're marking territory all the time. So they just have scent glands on them that are constantly producing this sort of fairly foul-smelling odour.
Do you think we'll ever be rid of them?
No.
I think it's one of those things you'd need that sort of CRISPR genetic stuff to be released, right? Where you literally
suddenly
encode.
There are no males.
Yeah.
So one generation, they're gone.
Yeah. But who knows what sort of effects that'll have.
Well, yeah. And that's part of the trouble that we have now is, check out the previous episode where we're talking about
dingoes.
Yeah. And where we're talking about the idea of humans controlling small parts of the environment and the effects that has on bigger ones. The fact now that we've had foxes here for 150 years or so means they are now part of our natural environment. And if we were to go and take them all out, then what we know now as the natural environment will significantly change, and it will not go back to what it was 150 years ago, because a whole lot of other things have changed as well.
Well, we've done a lot of damage, right? Because you had prior to Australia being colonized, we had loads of these larger predators like dingoes everywhere. We had a lot more wedge-tailed eagles all over the place. Yeah. Only a few thousands of years ago, we had, I think up to 5 different species of thylacine. We had Tassie devils that were just devils and all over the continent of Australia.
Of smaller predators like quolls and so on.
Yeah, and the dingoes came to Australia about 4,500 years ago. I think they're sort of the reason for the decline of the thylacine and the Tasmanian devil on the mainland, the devil that's just been pushed onto Tassie where there's no dingoes. Same with the thylacine until we hunted them out. But then you had, obviously, we've colonized the place. Humans released dogs. We started killing wedge-tailed eagles because we were worried about lambs. We started killing dingoes because we were worried about lambs. We let cats into the environment. We let foxes into the environment. And a lot of other domestic creatures as well. And they've all sort of reached a certain balance, right? Where there was a lot of, I think, again, I'm not brushed up on this, but there was quite a few extinctions initially. You had a lot of small marsupials and rodents disappear pretty quickly. But then I think it sort of plateaued and it reached obviously a sort of balance. And I think now they know that if you, say, kill rabbits off, the pressure from cats and foxes is suddenly now set upon all of these other native mammals.
Exactly. All these,
the rabbits were sort of relieving the pressure.
And bilbies and those sort of things.
And if you remove the cats and the foxes, the rabbits go crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that sort of direct competition with the other native species. So it is such a sort of house of cards thing when playing this game now.
Yeah, and look, I think it's about balance. We've got a new balance now, and if you try
the new normal,
exactly.
COVID normal,
eco normal, and if you try and make a huge change to that with all the right intentions, then it's going to have some fairly dramatic effects, and you're not necessarily going to be able to predict what they're going to be.
Unforeseen effects, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, do you think we'll move ahead with things like foxes and cats and other introduced species where it's just going to be a much more tentative kind of approach?
I think it'll be geographically isolated, as much as anything else. There are lots of places where we are deliberately killing foxes, getting foxes out of, say, places like sensitive areas in national parks.
Well, I think even excluding them, right? The Arid Recovery Project in, I think it's South Australia, where they just fence off a huge portion of land and bait it, get rid of all of the foxes and cats.
Exactly.
Release bilbies and other native animals.
Them.
But then just keep expanding it, where they just fence off another area, bait it, and then introduce the native animals.
Yeah, and now that is a huge effort and it takes a lot of time. And you need to keep the fences. They have to remain there. And so, I mean, I don't know whether we've spoken about the Zealandia project in New Zealand.
I think we have before.
But that's an extreme example of that. And, love New Zealand and New Zealanders because they just have a different view of the world. This is a 500-year project.
Yeah.
And it was around a man-made water reservoir, just out of Wellington. It was the major water source for the city of Wellington, the capital city of New Zealand. And they realised that it was on a fault line, and you don't want your entire water supply to be on a fault line because they have earthquakes all the time. If the dam wall gets done, then suddenly you've got no water. And so they built another, water supply and said, well, what are we going to do with this place? And they fenced it. It's like Jurassic Park fence. It's, 8 foot high, huge, seriously, protected, fencing around it, and spent decades removing all of the feral animals and
from
plants.
Australia,
because
they've got brush-tail possums,
and also removing non-native plants.
Yeah,
and this is a 500-year project.
Yeah,
so because it is one of those ones where, and the idea is to try and get it back to or at least self-create an environment that has no impact from outside.
I guess the biggest thing there that takes the longest amount of time is the growth of the trees. Right?
It is, yeah. And that's why they didn't just suddenly go through and go, we're going to wipe out all of the European trees in one go, because you need canopy trees to allow the native plants to grow up underneath them. And so there's been replanting of canopy trees, but they take 30 or 40 or 50 years to grow.
Yeah.
And then they're going through and effectively culling percentages of these trees out and other plants. And it's an amazing project. If you're in New Zealand and you're going to Wellington, go and check out Zealandia. It's effectively a native habitat zoo now. You've got to pay to get in there. But when you go in there, you get your bag searched. So to make sure you're not bringing in little rodents or insects, you have to, walk your shoes through, disinfectant. So you're not bringing in fungus and so they're taking it very seriously, but it's a great project. But it is one of those ones where if you want to restore an ancient ecology, you can't just do it overnight,
Yeah.
but it has to be done in a small area. You can't just say, well, the whole state of Victoria is going to go, well, all right, what are we going to do for, put get guards up at the border and say, no, I'm sorry, little marsupials, you don't belong here. Go away.
Well, that's it. You don't realize that, things move, right? Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. Don't forget, if you want the transcripts and the bonus episodes for the Goss, join up to the Premium Podcast or the Academy. And for everything else, go to Aussie English. See you next time.
Bye.
Alrighty, you mob. Thank you so much for listening to or watching this episode of The Goss. If you would like to watch the video, if you're currently listening to it and not watching it, you can do so on the Aussie English channel on YouTube. You'll be able to subscribe to that. Just search Aussie English on YouTube. And if you're watching this and not listening to it, you can check this episode out also on the Aussie English podcast, which you can find via my free Aussie English podcast application on both Android and iPhone. You can download that for free, or you can find it via any other good podcast app that you've got on your phone. Spotify, podcasts from iTunes, Stitcher, whatever it is. I'm your host, Pete. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a ripper of a day, and I will see you next time. Peace!